Hey guys, I'm out in the greenhouse. It's the 30th of May. Taking a look at the Oregon lemon that was planted in February. And if you guys look back, you saw that we went ahead and chopped it down after, it kind of had a failed flowering because it was a bit too cold here. And all of this new growth came up since then. You can see that these lower nodes that didn't really get as much sun when it was in flowering mode, they stay more in vegetative mode, so they're easier to re-veg essentially. And you can see all these nice healthy shoots coming up, and let's see. Yeah, so there's a 3-leaflet leaf right there coming out. So these guys are definitely going to be vegging in full force pretty soon here. And so the next step right now, pretty much today, I think I'm going to go through and trim a bunch of these out and just select down to maybe 10 or so of the best nodes. And you can see like that here, the apical point here is still doing the curlicue thing. So this bit will be a while until it's vegging again. But one node down, you can see this secondary growth here is pretty much good to go. So here it would make sense to remove that. And you can see the next node down is doing well as well. So we'll just start trimming out the weakest one, leaving the most vigorous growth that will then be bent out and down. So that's that. Let's see what we got here. Some beets. Yeah, those need to be thinned out. Then we got some peas coming. Our cabbage here is pretty much ready for like a spring cabbage size to harvest. The dill's been doing great, but that's pretty much going to seed now. We'll go ahead and save the most vigorous ones and just let it reseed all over again. This little cabbage is doing well too. And here's the sherbet. Really like the smell of this one. And you can see that some of it is still in between flower and veg. Some of it's breaking out. Here's actually a graft that survived. And I'm going to have to look and see what it is because I wasn't labeling stuff back then. But yeah, again, it's just starting to throw up these new shoots. And with this one, I went ahead and left one of the main branches. That's what they all were, like these thick ones before. You can see when I bend it over, it cracked here. But this back part, these veins back here survived, and so it was just flimsy bark, but now it's like a really thick stem building back there. And got a bit of heat stress when the plastic was still on. But again, you can see most of the stuff isn't anywhere near as far re-vegged. Still pretty much flowering, whereas some of these grows, especially if we trimmed a lot of this out, some of these grows will be ready to go in a week or two. So that definitely works to trim it back hard to expose the lower growths that didn't get as far into flowering, and let those re-veg rather than the top ones. And also you'll keep your plant a small size. So yeah, here's one of the volunteer tomatoes. See, it's got some nice flower bracts there. Still forming this one into a single stem, but I think I'll start the second stem, either this one or the next one up. Again, remember the most vigorous suckers on a tomato are the ones that are just below a flowering branch. So this one here. So let's see, we already had a small harvest of new potatoes from those over there. You guys saw those before, I think. And then these ones, you can see actually where the ground is swelling. Well, there's one that came to the surface right there. But that's kind of the cool thing of growing them in wood chips, is that they make basically like kind of mushroom hump type things where they raise up the ground because it's so loose. So definite evidence that there's potatoes down there already, like that. Can you see that? It's a pretty big hump there. Yeah. So there's a couple potatoes there. Just starting to swell up. And it's probably going to get too hot for them soon here, because tuber formation stops once it gets above room temperature. Alright, so this is one of the tomatoes that we started in the hoop house. And you can see the first flowers here. And by the way, if you wanted a really large tomato, what you would do is you would take off everything but the biggest flower. Like this one is already looking like it's going to be a compound flower. So you'd see there's one already forming here, and then this tiny little things there will be more tomatoes. So if you wanted to grow a really large one, what you can do is pull this off and leave just that. Here's a couple watermelon volunteers. We had some nice volunteer bushes here last year, so that's what they're coming from. And recently I put in peppers and eggplants down that. Hoping that they'll grow actually in the shade of these cannabis plants. Here's our potato leaf variety. This is the Japanese black trifle. And so let's see, this elephant that had got all of this heat stress just being in the greenhouse for a couple hours in the pot before it was put in the ground. I stripped off most of the burned up leaves, and it does look like some parts of it are recovering. Maybe this branch won't make it. But we'll see. We might have to replace this one and just call it quits on it. Whereas the lemon sour diesel with all of its grafts, and here's the elephant graft here. That's doing really well, and that already is showing signs of growing out. I've already had to bend it over a little bit here, and we're getting close to the trellis, and over here as well. So that's doing really well. So over here is a random squash that the chickens planted. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Something that they were eating, didn't finish all the seeds. And I've been pulling off the suckers that come in nodes here. So here you can see some male flowers. And basically all cucurbits will initially produce male flowers, and until they have a sufficient amount of active pollen, only then they will produce the female ones, which have kind of an immature fruit here at the base. And so I'm actually kind of trying to get this one to trail out of the greenhouse. And so yeah, I've been picking off the suckers even when they're really young. So here's one right here. That's a sucker there. There's another flower. So on. Who knows if we'll produce anything. Cucurbits are very outbreeding, so never know. So again, with these potatoes, I'm just going in, kind of feeling around, harvesting what I need, and covering it back up with mulch. And then we have another planting over here. Along with some peppers, eggplant, tomatoes. And if you guys saw it in, I don't know when it was, in the fall or the winter, I showed this oregano bush here. And it was huge, like 2 feet across. I cut it back entirely. Just down to this one stump. You can see all of this new growth coming out. So I want to take that off actually. Like that. Because I think I want to try to raise it up a little bit, see if I can train it to be kind of more upright than spreading. See, the water lettuce has been splitting. It's doing really well in that micro pond. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.